Hello and welcome back to day two of Apisecure 2023. My name is Trish Villanueva. I'm the global head of security operations at Scotiabank. And welcome to the Blue Track, where we talk about the defensive side of securing APIs. So, really excited to get you started here this morning. Our first presenter is Arik Atar, threat intelligence researcher at Human Security. He's going to be talking about something I'm really excited to hear about, the emerging love triangle of API credential stuffing and financial fraud. Take it away, Arik.
Thank you very much. Can you see my screen? Nice. Yes. So we are good to go. So hello everyone. Super excited to be here. My name is Arik Atar. I'm a threat intelligence researcher for the past 5 years, which means that I spend most of my time on underground forums, marketplaces, proactively and passively collecting a lot of intelligence that can serve the cyber defense companies that I work for. In the next 40 minutes, and we'll have also a Q&A session in the end, I will try to cover a new trend that is going on right now in recent months, and also to put the DraftKings study case into publish in this matter. Basically, we have a lot of API endpoints that are being exploited by hackers for login attempts, for credential stuffing attacks, account takeovers. I'm going to cover exactly what it means and how it goes through the end, from the bottom until the end of the attack cycle itself. So generally speaking, this is really the general topics that we're going to cover in the next 40 minutes. First, why and how hackers exploit APIs. Specifically, we're going to aim towards account crackers, those who try to hack into social media and e-commerce accounts all the time. And if you ever had a fraudulent charge on your credit card, it might be from this kind of reason of attack, and we're going to cover this one for those who are less familiar with it. After that, we're going to take a deep dive into DraftKings script analysis. DraftKings is a cyber attack that occurred in November 22, a few months ago. We're going to cover exactly what happened there with a timeline that will present what published in the media versus what published on the underground deep forums. After that, we're going to talk about what is the future holds in accounts of API malicious automation. Well, I'm not a prophet and I'm not trying to be, but I'm in this business for the last 5 years, enough to say that I'm seeing the beginning of a new platoon of tactics that we are expecting to see from this kind of attack vectors like credential stuffing. So let's dive right in. First, why would account crackers would target API endpoints? Because if you think about account crackers, they are trying to pretend to be real humans. They will use for that, they will use a diverse amount of like tools in order to promote their attack. This is the traditional account takeover operation. What a hacker needs, he needs VPS, virtual personal servers, in which he can run a lot of computing force in order to crack passwords. He would spread them throughout different IPs that belong to real users. Either he will use botnet proxy suppliers like we've seen in recent years, or hack devices, or legitimate proxy services that just provide a lot of IPs. And through that, he gets a hold on a lot of devices and then just send to the target site that it sits in a specific region, a lot of login requests asking, maybe this is the password, this is the password, this is the password, like millions of times until he get it right and hacks your account. So basically, it involves a lot of structure. You need to understand a little bit in development and maintaining your resources, so we won't wear them out over dead credentials or dead proxies or whatever. API ATO operation works differently. The hacker firstly decompile the target site app, mobile app. He download the app itself, he decompile it, which means that it goes and reverse engineer whatever happens while he's working on it. and then he mimicking the same behavior, the same headers, the same identifiers that API authentication is relying on, and trying to look like a legit third-party app that is communicating with the origin app. Like whenever you are trying to sign up with user, like with Google on different servers or Facebook or whatever, you are doing an API call there. So I've seen a lot of scripts in which attackers are just trying to look like an API third-party authentication services, and then they don't even need to guess the credentials because they have a cookie of your Chrome browser and they can do sign up with Chrome. So this is one thing that we're going to talk about in the next slides, but first of all, to understand why we need to check the alternative. This is the alternative, and it costs a lot of money and effort, and most importantly, time. It takes a lot of time to understand what is the right measurement, what is the rate that you need to go through, so you will pass all of this request and maybe get a hold in one account. But in this scenario, they are just saving a lot of resources. So naturally, we are seeing in human security, the company that I work for, we are seeing an increase. I think it was 72% increase in the amount of scripts, credential stuffing scripts that are going on darknet that are focusing on API endpoints. It used to be something around 30% of total attacks that we've collected scripts, and now it became to be the vast majority, between 72 to 78% of the total scripts amount are API basically. So it's really cost effective because you don't need a lot of IPs and you don't need to pay per bandwidth. It maximizes the success rate, and this is most importantly here. API doesn't have the signals and information that the devices holds. Like device, you could anti-bot solutions, so anti-attack DDoS services, they will try to figure out fingerprint. Every one of us have a digital fingerprint in this device, but when you don't use these devices, you don't have the fingerprint. So a lot of detection logics are not implemented into API security. And this is a problem here because they can just go and be even with primitive tools, you can do a lot of damage. That is practically what it means. There's no JavaScript rendering. Whenever you load a page, you will work with JavaScript, of course. Whenever you do it through API, you don't upload any screen, so you lose a lot of signals from this area, of course. You don't see screen resolution. You don't have the amount of time it took them to reload. You can't get stack information. This is a lot of signals that are getting in the loss in the way. And of course, in the attacker perspective, it's not under the flashlight. Most of the analysts and the security defenders are out there are looking on these endpoints. They are trying to figure out whether this kind of device made more fraud than this kind of device. But when it comes to API, most of the human eyes are not there. Let's just say it like that. So people and companies and enterprises are not aware of the fact that their third-party API is being abused in order to hack into their users' accounts. So now that we know why would they do that financially, of course, and of course, like when it's come to time consuming, how do they do it exactly? How do they exploit the APIs for attack preparations? So the first step after I have, like as an attacker, I have a credential list, I have proxies, I want to commit credential stuffing. I want to hack into people's accounts, take over it and exploit whatever is in it. So the first thing I need to know is whether my email list is even valid, which means practically that if the emails that I have is even signed up to the target site that I want to attack. Let's just say I want to go on Amazon and all of them are signed up to, I don't know, like Walmart, just dropping like that. So, and none of them have an Amazon account, so I'm wasting a lot of cracking resources. This process that designed behind it to solve this problem is called mail validation. And this is what hackers is doing all the time in masses. First of all, we have this user reconnaissance, activist reconnaissance process in which they will just try to go to the API and put the user ID right over here, send a user agent that will be, of course, mobile because they're exploiting here the mobile API endpoint. So This is what they put, and they wait to the status code. If they get a status code that says 200, this is great, you can continue on, this is success. Failure considered to be 404, of course, and this email is already registered with Brand or Facebook, which means that here they are putting your emails out there in order to see if you're registered to a service or not. If you are registered there, in a few hours, you will have an attack on over your account. They will try to hack into your account using your old passwords from former pages. But if you're not there, they will just eliminate you from this list, put you in the ban list, of course, and then they will move on to the next possible victim. So this is kind of intelligence they are gathering before they are they even start to shoot the first login attempt. Another tactic here, this is one of the simplest one, just use the API and check the code. But not all of them have this mechanism. Not all of the companies just giving away information like this. So there's this new account registration mail validation. Whenever you're trying to, all of you probably had this experience when you're trying to sign up to this account and that you already forgot that you have an account in, and they tell you this email is already taken. Hackers exploit this exact mechanism in order to understand if to validate emails for a credential stuffing attack. So the first thing they will do, they will just open up the API right here, send a post request, and put this name. And under this name, they put different passwords every time. Put the different usernames to understand what they are getting. If they are getting email is already been taken, they know it's a valid mail. So this is like the second and pretty wise, I have to say, and simple, straightforward system they are using. Scripts that does this automatically are being shared for free all the time. So it's not even something that the hacker puts money on. Or the only thing he needs to put money on is the traffic that he sends to this API activities, which is much, much less. So after we've been through these two validation processes, we are ready to launch the attack itself. And this is where I'm going to take you into DraftKings attack specifically. On DraftKings attack, it happened on the 18th of November. Of course, for the obvious reasons, I'm not going to share my resources. So I call this attacker the Xanderpuss, which is a notorious account cracker that I've been following his personal private channels for the last 2 years. And he launched a massive credential stuffing attack. He tried to log into this service using all users' passwords. This is a sports betting platform. And why is it really, really interesting? Because this date is 3 days only after the NFL league is just started, which means that the timing was not occasional. He was aiming into the timing in which a sports betting app would have the highest amount of money in it. So basically, 3 days after the NFL started, when everyone is hyped on the games and gambling and putting a lot of money into the balance, he launched a massive attack, and he got like tens of thousands of breach attacks out there, and he just starts to put them out. As a result, $300,000 got stolen from DraftKings users in just 4 days, and their stock's price dips, of course, in 10%, since it got really high media coverage back then. So if we go to the beginning of everything, from your right, you will see whatever was published on that threat actor Telegram personal channel. This is where he put all the stuff out. From the left, you will see whatever the users, DraftKings users, complained about on Reddit, on Twitter, and the media coverage. So this is what we know, like we're all exposed for, and this is what happened in this Telegram account. The first, it first started with the attack itself, but right after it, he published massive DraftKings restocks, hit while the method works, wave gonna die soon. So like, take the stock as it hot, but before it gets cold. And DraftKings cash out, it's a new kind of version of attack. And this is the first time that we see it in this scale. Cash out attacks have been out for years and increasingly high in 2022. But this event is in different scale. he's not only like taking over the accounts like a normal account cracker, he's also like differentiate between accounts with high value and not high value and sell them for specific purpose of taking all the money and withdrawing for fraudulent activity, probably. So it's like probably practically like stealing a lot of safes in, but for doing that, stealing all the houses in the neighborhood and then selling the house according to the safe value. This is the equivalent, a weird one. But those accounts are being priced compared to their assets inside. And of course, he provides them with a method. Let's go over it for a second because this is really important. Go to the account setting and enable two-factor authentication. Two-factor authentication it's supposed to block people like this to get even a grip on the account from the beginning. So of course, he hacked people without two-factor authentication, which is supposed to send you a SMS code or email and everything. And then he exploited it and told his buyers, go there and turn on the two-factor authentication and put your own phone number. Of course, it's a phone number that they are just generated like a second before using one of the services, hundreds of services out there that does that. And this is how you bypass a two-factor and cash out the account. And of course, it provides them with a link to the image itself that shows it. After that, you put a deposit of $5. This is a system of a lot of companies that try to flag the first transaction to check it, and then to choose to let the user do another actions. So they have to do that and withdraw the balance to account to any payment method. Send a code to SMS instead of email. They changed of course, two-factor, so it will be suit to the whatever they put here, their phone number, and enjoy your money. So, and right when it happened, we in human security began to see with our cloud crawlers, a lot of DraftKings users begin to complain that they got stuck out of their account. My account was hacked. They changed my password and phone number, contact support, and blah blah blah, and my funds withdraw. I can't get any help here. So all of them complain on this specific method that they got locked away outside of their account because all of a sudden DraftKings did not consider them as the real owner since the last user changed their password, changed their email, and put a fake mobile phone. So this was the beginning of it. On the 21st, 2 days after that, we started to see a lot of Descendapus, the attacker buyers that bought a lot of the accounts, trying to brag about the fact that they managed to withdraw huge amounts of thousands of dollars and putting it away. All of my Telegram looks like this. This day, everyone talked all about DraftKings and all about Descendapus. And the statement came from DraftKings, an official one that says it's a credential stuffing attack. But still, we were kept seeing this kind of activity outside. More people continue to complain on Twitter. Some of the hackers themselves began to kind of mock on the price talk of DraftKings and also to consult with each other how they need to work with the breach accounts, how can they successfully log into the account. So this is basically the third step. We've seen the first step was the ATO attack, in which Descendapus itself sent a lot of login attempts through API, managed to grab thousands of accounts, and then he sells it. And this is the second phase in which buyers comes in and try to get a hold of the account. And he is the one that is doing the cash out action. So we have a separation between what was considered as a one act before. On the 22nd of November, the Descendapus declared that everything is dead. Wave is dead means that the bypass doesn't work anymore. It can't get more stock of it, and most of the accounts that haven't been hacked yet are probably blocked right now. We are all broke again. He says, going back to hitting visas and DoorDash Jordans. You have a sense of humor for sure. And of course, the media took apart from this, the traditional media started to report on that, and it had this effect on the stock market, of course. Last part of this whole attack thing, on the 28th of November, the attacker Telegram channel is shut down by Telegram. We lost the connection. This is what everyone saw when they got into this channel. But he opened up a new shop, a new channels, and he had 11,000 subscribers. This was taken 4 hours after he opened it up. So this guy is very popular right now. He has almost 50,000 subscribers. So he's really, if you want, a fraud influencer on Telegram. Of course, he's continuing with the fat drops for hitting a specific amount of users or subscribers up until now, just like an influencer does these days. So what we had, this is what happened generally speaking. This was the macro picture of what we saw there. This is the script as was written by Josandapus, of course, and was published on dark web forum, something like 8 days after the attack was over. This is the nature of this kind of scripts. They tend to get published right after they are not effective anymore. So even if you're not that technical, I believe that I can explain to you, generally speaking, what he did here. So first of all, it's really rare that a Karen cracker writes on scripts. Most of the time, they will use a specific a position they have in the hacking world, which called a config developer. Config developer usually will be focused on that area specifically, and it will sell it with a lot of money, hundreds of dollars on a good config, and a great config can cost up to $10,000, the most expensive that I've seen. But this guy is doing his own scripts, which means that he has some experience in debugging, in reverse engineering, in decompiling mobile SDKs and mobile apps that he did here. And this is also something that we can learn from. This version stands for Silver Bullet, which is the one of the most common credential stuffing and brute force for login like tools out there. And what he did here, as part of the attack, he did the mail validation, and not as a separate process. The attack continue on only with valid mails. First thing, put the email user ID here and check for status ID. If it's status 1, it's a failure. Anything else is success. After that, he's doing an API request options, which is less tend to be flagged by detections, which is a smart move here. He's doing here a DraftKings API path for providers when we cannot tell for sure, of course, what is this path specifically. But he solves there a CAPTCHA. CAPTCHA is the one that pops out and tells you need to choose all of the crocodiles in these pictures and all of the buses. This is a CAPTCHA, and he solved it really easily with the native function of this cracking tool that allows it. And then he gets the token back. And even though he apparently solved it from Windows NT, he replies it right over here with OnePlus Mobile. And this is what he figured out he can do. He can solve a CAPTCHA easily through PC and reply it through different device, and nobody would notice, and they will let him pass. And this is exactly what he did there. He checks, he puts, of course, the CAPTCHA code here, which pops a CAPTCHA on purpose, and then he solves it and then takes the token and put it to someone else. If I compare the situation into the real world, it's like someone will get somehow access to get inside of a really exclusive famous people party, and he will get this stamped on his hand. And right when he get it, he will figure out that he can picture it, send it to his friend, and his friend can just show the picture, and he can get in. This is the equivalent to the real world, what's going on right here. Also, he's doing in the end of the user agent, which is one of the headers that are one of the most important ones. He put this kind of function that just generates a random string. This is because a lot of detections say, hey, you cannot go this much of requests if you have this specific user agent. When he enumerates a number and to infinite, he gets an infinite chance to do login attempts without getting blocked over these specific logics. So this is why, of course, it happened. Of course, he puts all the headers for the in order to be considered a mobile API request. And let's just see it right here. The last part, after he's doing the credential stuffing itself, putting the username, password, and checks for invalid or success logins. The last part he's trying to capture. He's trying to understand what is the value of the asset he just stole. It's the equivalent of stealing someone's house and then checking the safe in order to know how to price the house. So this is exactly what he did here. They're going to account balance, capture it, so he won't have to do another login attempt in order to get this information. So this is the script itself. What did he did here? He did user mail validation, exploited invalid user error and filtering unsigned credentials. He did CAPTCHA farming. Farming means that he triggered the CAPTCHA on purpose in order to solve it and to steal the token and replay it on different session. Exploited the poor input policy to generate a CAPTCHA from a PC, because what they could have done is practically saying we do not get a CAPTCHA, we do not accept CAPTCHA tokens that were generated through different device. It makes sense, but we don't think about it as defenders or as a developer of apps. So mobile spoofing, he generated a unique 1+ headers per session to bypass detections of headers, and of course API brute force, which means that they practically use the third-party provider. Probably not surely for that, but it looks like it says provider and API, so it looks like it's meant this endpoint was designed for third-party app users, developers, to connect with them and provide them the information they need to run their operation. So he exploited this one, which made it less noticeable. It took them a while to pay attention to it, and I'm sure it's because one of the reasons is that it was having lack of visibility over the API. So let's go specifically on the breach credentials. And if you ever got this message that your password was compromised on Have I Been Pwned or Google, when you have the password manager that tells you you have 3 passwords that were compromised, and you wonder what does that means, this is exactly what I'm going to touch right now. What happened to your breach password, basically? And this is an intro for us to understand what credentials the Zenderpost used in drafting case, so I'm going to return to that in a minute. So first of all, you are signed up to a lot of services outside. It's only a matter of time. It's not if, it's when they will be breached. Because of ransomwares, because of random attacks, because of government attacks, because of non-government threat actors, you have a lot of factors out there. And we keep seeing it all the time. The amount of companies that go through data breach is keep increasing exponentially through the years. So one of the services that you once used and put your email and password that you mostly use are breached right now and is shared in a lot of platforms: Telegram, Discord, deep web and underweb, and dark web. And these user credentials are being all the time published over and over again by different hackers that wants the likes, they want the credit, they want the recognition. You have a lot of stuff out there. The most qualified ones, the data breach which has the purest information, tend to cost more, and they are being created out of combo makers. Combo makers are hackers that are proficient in taking large database as an input, and the output is username password list for cracking pure. So they would take a large database and they would just filter out everything but the credentials and sell it for a lot of money, like $400 for 10 million credentials, bridge credentials of Gmail United States. This is about the prices that keep changing all the time because there are a lot of new competitors in between this industry of combo makers. but they are doing the whole dirty work because this data breach containing a lot of hashed passwords, which means they are not in plain text because plain text is not illegal to it's illegal to store it. So basically, hash passwords is just a string of numbers, and it's basically just letters that you cannot undo. But if you are a hacker and you know some dehashing techniques, and you have large database of hashed and not hashed that you can run and compare on, which is used to called rainbow tables. If you have this kind of measurement and tools, you can dehash those database and be the first that publish the plain text. And this is what they are all after. They are after qualified good database, which they sometimes will buy from APT groups and this kind of larger threat actors, and they sell credentials. So this kind of guy will take your credentials out of the data breach and will filter it out to a list with everyone else. And then account cracker will buy it, or will just check it to see if the combo maker has a word and if he has a professional work. So they will get it and they try to run it on the different website with a checker. They will try to sign you up, or either go and check if you are already signed up with other methods, so they can create valid list address, and then they will go and crack it with the brute force itself. So generally speaking, before everything happens, they need to create the mail validation list, and they need to take a large amount of data and to filter it out. So it's a several threat actors that are involved in this process. Sometimes it can be up to 5 or 7 different threat actors. Sometimes the combo maker will sell it to a different combo maker that will do a reselling to account cracker. It can be much, much more complicated than this, of course, but for the simplifying of credential intro, I did this slide. So what we can tell about DK breach credentials, and this is the interesting part here. So just like companies, it has this freemium model in which you get to test for trial the service before you get to pay for it. Exact same thing is done by account crackers. They are sharing this amount, like just small amounts, small portions of amount for free. So people will see, yeah, they did it, they're cracking it, and they're not just bluffing. For us, the threat intelligence, it's a great news, because we can take these credentials and run it through Have I Been Pwned and understand with which collection of databases they are working. Because as I showed you right over here, this guy brute forces based on the combo, the data breach and the combo that he gets, the username and password list. So here I can take a successful logins and check what database they are appearing. So I measure up to 300 breach accounts that were published by Jesendapel specifically, and also others. But the one we've seen here, of course, all these companies were filled with the same users, but it kept changing. The only thing that kept consistent between all the 300 breach accounts of DraftKings is this collection. They're all being part of collection 1. Collection 1 is 773 million unique email addresses and passwords. It's basically one of the largest like databases that were ever published on deep web and darknet form, and it happened in January 2019. And basically all of the successful logins, all of the accounts that we've seen that been hacked and scraped their credential and check, were appearing in these collections, which means that the attacker, the Jesendapel specifically, was working probably on his database collection 1. So it's also very, very important information as a defender. Okay, let's talk about how DraftKings is even different than other attacks that we keep seeing all the time. Why did the FBI involved? Why it got such a media coverage? First, we need to understand why the attacker itself is different from other attackers. First of all, knowing how to crack an account and be technical, this is one thing. knowing how to be a social influencer and how to build up your fan base and how to nurture it and how to be committed to constant uploading and just give away in every trick in the hat that you have there. This is totally a different matter. A lot of the hackers that I've been following after in the last 5 years have the first skills, the technical skills. Sometimes they have the will to brag about it. Sometimes they have the will to be silent about it. But this guy is like took it to the different level with the amount of social media techniques that we keep seeing on Instagram and TikTok that are important into Telegram. Um, Basically, he launched an affiliate program, which means affiliate program is basically one marketing strategy that tells you if you buy through my link, you will get 50% off. And the target site is practically paying for users to bring more users. We are all know it for different services that we use. He took the best out of it and launched an affiliate program that says that for everyone that you will bring, for every dollar that you will spend, you will get 50 cents, like 50% over the amount they spent on the site, on the shop. So bring your friends, they will buy bridge accounts for my shop, and you will get more money to buy for yourself, more bridge accounts. This was a hit and brought him a lot of referrals, and I saw him bragging about it in several places. And of course, he writes his own scripts, which is something that we tend not to see outside in those scale of attacks. So, of course, this differentiators created an imitation effect. A lot of other threat actors were rushed into the cash out method. Instead of just selling accounts and telling you can do whatever you want from there, they started to guide their followers and buyers and prospects into doing payment fraud, into withdrawing money that they don't really own, that the victims owns. So they practically, there's a huge demand after that to cash out the tax from the buyers. The people that hacks the account and buy the breach account have more ask about it everywhere and trying to consult with each other. This increased, of course, the supply, the demand that infects the supply, and more config writers and account crackers are offering captcha-less configs and cash out methods. And you can see here, this is one of the notorious shop out there that instant cash out. You like you just log in, you take the money out, and you're out. That's it. And practically, we're seeing a lot of rise in the social media fraud influencers, which means that we have more tutorials out there than ever before into how to hack into the account that you just breached or bought breach. We have a lot of information going on in those and videos that will just screen record and show you exactly how you can do payment fraud. So if like 2 years ago you needed to be at least a basic, you have a basic knowledge in carding, you need to understand credit cards, you need to understand a little bit about hacking. Now they put it in the level in which every kid in the age of 16 that wants to brag into his friends that he just bought like I don't know like Netflix for 10 years, have the incentive and have the ability and the tools to do that. Um, this is one of the guidance out there. It tells you where to buy a proxy from, and it tells you exactly how to use it. Clear cookies in the browser. Wait 5 minutes. I guess he tested it itself, and you see that below 5 minutes, he gets blocked and lose the account. And then it tells them the thresholds. Wait another 5 minutes and deposit 5 minutes, 10 minutes again, and withdraw the funds to your account. Clear cookies, repeat. And the most interesting part, email bomb the owner, so the owner won't notice you are taking his life savings. What is email bombing? This is something that also the Xanapus and also other threat actors are going and developing there. Uh, Email bomb is a tool that sends to the victim that you choose to send to 10,000 up to 10,000 emails in 10 minutes. So let's just say someone hacked into your Gmail right now. You will get an email that tells you a suspicious sign up in your Gmail. But if this hacker used email bomb, you will get so many emails at the same time that you will 100% lose the Gmail warning and alert that is out there. And this is exactly what email bomb is meant for. Email bomb, SMS bomb, phone bomb, you can call it. There are services out there. This is one of the dashboards, as you can see. Just put an example there. It tells you can send 36,000 inboxes and repeat this over and over again. At the cost of several dollars, it's nothing. And they even have an happy hour, just like your neighborhood pub. You have a 30% discount between 4 to 5 p.m. if you want. I guess it's the place in which the time in which they have the least load on the service. So practically, we keep seeing this every time. More pools, people are on it, and attackers are more concentrated on fraud, payment fraud than any other use case of breach accounts that we've seen before. The end. This is, I think, the final slide here. So how can we prepare for API cache out? The truth is that it will take a lot of effort, of course, but you can do that. These are the general steps that need to guide you in order for doing that, in order to block credential stuffing from your API endpoints. First of all, you want to monitor it through human eyes, not just the solution out there. You want to understand if they have changes on the behavior of the API, not just spikes of traffic. You want to understand how it works, why this specific app is trying to do so many login attempts when yesterday at the same time it didn't, just for purpose. But this kind of logics can guide you there, and aim for basic and maximum visibility. Understand exactly who is connecting to your API endpoints, how many login attempts should be apparently, and how you can block and mitigate the risk of broken authentication in the API level. You can read more about it in the OWASP API 10. So this is the first thing. Email notifications is not enough. We need to think about new creative way to communicate it with the users. As a defenders, we need the user to know if someone is trying to hack into his account, and of course, enable him the ability to whitelist it. Maybe it's his, and emails is not enough because email bomb practically kills email notification, and also SMS. Push notification is the best one. And also, if you can't do that, or if most of your users are not activating push notifications, consider when to take actions for the user behalf. It's like for the name of the user. If someone is doing like 10,000 login attempts on specific user, it's not supposed to happen in any legitimate scenario there. So blocking the account or suspending it or putting an arrow, just frozen it, you have a lot of measurements and enforcements you can do before blocking or terminating account in order to block this threat itself. And the most importantly, we have the threat hunt itself, of course, which means that be on top of your threat actors. If they're on top of you, if they can see you all the time and you cannot see them, it's only a matter of time until they will surprise you, until they will come up with a new creative way, and you will find yourself thinking, how did they even get to this? In order to be on top of your threat actors, you need either to build a threat intelligence collection team and nurture it and train them, of course, to your specific use cases, or either use a defender, a third-party defender that does the anti-bot solution for you and correlates with it a lot of proactive and non-active, actually, like passive collections of threat intelligence. The questions that needs to guide us when we think about threat intelligence of credential stuffers is, first, why am I being targeted? And sometimes the way to answer it is to answer the second question: how my competitors are being targeted more or less than me? If they are less than me, what I can do like them in order to promote my security? What do they have that my accounts and my users don't have? Two-factor authentication using a mobile app, maybe. Maybe it will be a biometrical instead of a password. there are ways to find those bridge accounts outside, and sometimes it's even in the fourth page of Google. I'm not even taking you into dark web or this kind of scenarios. All you need is to search for it and use search engine, use a lot of stuff, and get the risk scope. Why am I being targeted, and what my competitor is doing differently or badly, so I can improve. Sometimes you will see that your competitor have much more breach account out there, uh, and the price is really lower because it's not about to fill up the supply when they don't have that hard of that detections. So it's also a good indication and feedback loop for you, positive or negative, but it will give you a good scope of where should you be focusing when defending your API endpoints. So I would like to thank my last minute to Ben Bayo, which is one of the greatest security researchers that I ever came across and met. Bayo was developing the restringer, which is practically Google Translate for the obfuscated code. You put the obfuscated code of a malware, of whatever, and it gives you the clear text of it, and you can scan here the QR code and get it. It's totally for free. If you're a security researcher, you will find specifically a security researcher in the end of the endpoint security and malware. You will find it really, really useful. This is my profiles that you can, of course, follow and like in the content that I'm bringing out. And next week, my first episode of ThreatNet, the podcast, we're going to be released to YouTube and LinkedIn. It's going to be a weekly 20-minute session in which I dive into threat intelligence, teaching it to someone that doesn't have a clue, up until the place when we will analyze together a lot of attacks that happened in the recent months. So follow me for that, and I'm here for free for answering any kind of questions.
All right. Thank you so much for that presentation, Arik. We'll leave the QR codes up, briefly for a quick second, just so that everyone can grab them with their phones. And certainly fascinating walkthrough of a specific threat actor using a cash out method. I know a lot of financial institution mobile apps will have these kinds of integrations with things like gambling platforms or perhaps trading platforms that are largely digital nowadays. And so very, very cool, fascinating. I took lots of notes, at least for myself. So I wanted to kind of just ask you a little bit more about that timeline and some of the more salient pieces there, at least that I took note of. One of the most interesting things about the case that you just brought to us was that it wasn't really detected necessarily by DraftKings until the chatter started occurring on social media. And so what I wanted to kind of know was how quickly was it from the posting of the availability of the technique and the sale of these before it really began to happen in social media? What is that kind of lead time before people start to take to Twitter or Reddit and start asking these kinds of questions?
This is a great question. And practically, I would say one of the first indications that we can collect on credential stuffing would be from Twitter and Reddit, and not the darknet. Because of that, users would do it immediately. They feel helpless. They get locked outside of their account. Their account might be having like $50,000 inside. This is a lot of money. People put a lot of savings in this. So the miserable feeling they have in the same moment takes them right into the Twitter and Reddit. In order for them, it's just like social media, corporate shaming that we keep seeing. It's like I'm as the little customer trying my best to hurt the reputation so they will pay attention to me. The users want the attention of the support. Most of the time they are being dealt wrongly by the support, so they are even more mad and they come with the whole story. But the buzz happens when they begin to get a lot of likes and upvotes in Reddit. because a lot of people are related to it because it happened to them in the same moment. So people are
Yeah.
trying to, and then the storm begins, and it's a storm that it's really hard in crisis management to stop.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And certainly when you're looking at it from contacts to the call center, requests to the specific support line, you're looking at these individual occurrences, and it takes, a bit of zooming out in order to review that. And certainly as security practitioners are starting to develop the monitoring of these APIs, because that's something that may take time depending on how big the development team is, how big the footprint is. It's good to know that there's some of these telltale signs that you can get from the way that your customer base is reacting to a lot of these. So really, really very fascinating in that sense. So when it diving a little bit into the API there, and a bit more into the technical pieces of it. So when you look at those user enumeration kind of requests, it's something that we as security practitioners, at least from the front door, have been told a lot about. And so when you're looking at that web application, you don't want to return something that may be enumerated many times. Is this something that you're seeing as a prolific problem in APIs in general, not just in financial kind of settings, but in all APIs across the board? And what would you say this is one of the top pieces of advice that you might want to give to folks? Is the API is primarily being used for enumeration, or are there more kind of techniques that are prevalent?
Yes, practically, I would say that um, the API has been the most favorite currently way into account crackers. If we are
Mm,
talking about bot operators that bot stocks and do different kind of activities, they will use the user interface that we are all familiar with. They will use residential proxies and device. They will go the long way because they have to. Whenever you do a long flow on the web, you will get detected. It's not like that. This one is like a hit and run. When you do credential stuffing, it's like hit and run. So mobile API, in which mobile we have higher thresholds. You can do more actions on your mobile 5-inch, 6-inch screen than you can do with a keyboard and mouse. So all the websites have adjusted the thresholds according to the type of the device. So mobile spoofing and acting like you are mobile phone is like going for the Joker, because you can change it to be whatever you want. You can run with much higher amount of actions per minute. So this is the first thing that I would like to say about this one. The second one, it will be around the how we can monitor which way the attackers are attacking us. So configs, let's just say a lot of them, the most like the scripts that attackers are using all the time in order to breach and to exploit APIs are being shared for free all the time through Telegram, through Discord. You can find a party over there. And just for uploading the last 3 months that I have over 300 accounts, I scraped more than 2,215 ATO scripts, which called configs. So those configs is what you want to look for, because that, of course, will give you the security image that was right and relevant a month ago, not right now, because the real configs are paid. But it will give you a sense of direction. You can see exactly the headers they are using. You can see where they went. It's human readable. Even if you don't understand code, you can understand the script of a lolly script. It's called, and it's simple to understand for analysts where to look for. And this saves a lot of time. I see a lot of really talented analysts and defenders out there are trying to wear, and they are being weared out in order to find a true positive sample. Just a true positive that they can see, okay, this is how it's different from a human. This is the problem, that we try to practically separate between human into machine. So acting and examining those API patterns to see if we all of a sudden have a spike, or even a low and
mm,
slow that goes on specific hours, the hours in which the attacker is active. We can see a lot of inconsistencies. This is the key
mm,
word that we would like to look here. inconsistencies, because a hacker is a human being and he will eventually do a mistake. And when he will do a mistake, it will, just for example, we use the wrong user agent, we'll send the wrong header, will use a really bad reputation IP. Whenever he will do that, he will expose himself, and he will give us the opportunity to research him and to provide more signals for detections.
Very cool. Very cool. And I think it's something that we've heard throughout this conference, at least in the Blue Track, is to make sure that you're monitoring either allows or denies just any amount of spikes in that activity. If you're not at the point where you're rate limiting these kinds of requests, or if you're still at that thresholding perspective, you know what I mean? You can absolutely start to, as long as you have eyes on it, then you can make, you know, some kind of assumptions about it. So really,
Exactly.
really interesting. My last question, because I know we're at time. If there anybody else that has a question in the audience, please throw it in the comments. I'm happy to read it to Arik, and he can kind of provide that insight for us. But my final question for you then, Arik, is when we're talking about third-party APIs, that may be a little bit more challenging to monitor because you don't necessarily own it. It belongs to that third party. What kind of advice do you have to give for the developers of these apps from the financial institution side that need to keep that code open, so that various types of third parties, whether it's something like DraftKings where you're withdrawing funds, or something like an NDAX where you're trading Bitcoin or stocks or fiat, what kind of advice do you have for the security practitioners and the developers when you've got so many different possible APIs keying into your applications?
It's really hard. I totally agree. It's hard to monitor so many endpoints and to be on top of so much information. I think dedicated solution for API security can be the right solution for most of the people out there. If you don't have an experience in this field, take the experts, put money on it. It will save you money in the end, because all of that transactions that we seen earlier becomes to be a chargeback files and disputes, and the credit cards more than 1% doesn't work with you anymore. It's a strategic threat. So monitoring this kind of stuff, if you don't have enough eyes, outsource for sure. But what the developers is really important personnel there, because the developer wants to sleep at night, and if there's integration problems, he doesn't sleep at night. He gets a lot of tickets, he gets a lot of tasks. So he thinks, let's make a gate that will be the most easier to go through, the easiest way. Like, let's build it that way. But the hacker understands that and goes there too. So we are forced practically in this game, if we don't want to just allow hackers fast access to every one thing we own. We need to put a lot of detection logics that we already know from application security on this kind of endpoints, and to protect them. In the last year, I can see that a lot of the data breach that I'm hunting are resulted in bad API. We can take, for example, the most notorious example is LinkedIn. The last LinkedIn scraping was happening through API. So hacker just sent a request to the API, and through broken authentication, he got the content and the private information of all of us, practically, and it runs from there for free in the internet. So this happened because of open API endpoint. And they don't even need the password. They can check their database for the old passwords they have with the same email. So breaking into their accounts is even like easier than ever before using API. So practically the amount of information that they provide out, when, how, what is what we want to have behavioral analysis. That is the basic things. Because once we know how is a third party acts, if someone is riding on top of it, it will act differently. I think this is something that a hacker will never have the chance to figure out, because he doesn't know how they act. He doesn't get the chance to see it. If you know how the third party acts, and you know that in daylight and this is the way that it goes of the traffic, trying to normalize it to this one. So yes.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, I could talk to you all day, Arik, but I know that you've got somewhere to be, and so do the folks here on the line. So thank you so much for
Thank you,
joining
everyone.
us. It was an absolute pleasure, and we'll hear from you soon.